So this is our SCIF assessment to interview a scientist, and we are here with Associate Professor John Stride of the UNSW Chemistry School.
Good day.
So Dr. Stride, what do you do here at the university?
My typical day is, start at 9ish, finish at 5, 6ish. May take some work home afterwards. So what do I do in the middle of the day, in between those times? So I have a research group to look after. So at the moment, that involves, I've got a postdoc, I've got some postgraduate students, I've got some honours students. They've all got projects, they've got individual projects. I need to contribute to that. We hold a group meeting once a week, so that's 1 or 2 hours a week for that. I teach, so there are various courses, and of course that varies through session. In the School of Chemistry, I'm also the Director of Research. That involves some admin within the school, so various meetings I have to attend at school level, at faculty level. In terms of running the group, there's safety stuff, there's day-to-day running of the group, there are people writing theses, so that has to be kind of managed. And then of course the research papers, so you have to also try and write research papers. And, mustn't forget, there's also trying to get more money in grants. So there's plenty to fill one's day, and in fact the work often spills over into work to take home. Laptops have been a great invention that helps in that regard.
So was this the plan you had all along as a kid, to become a chemist?
No. As a kid growing up, a chemist was somebody you went to get cough syrup from, as a pharmacist. So no, I guess my biggest inspiration for becoming a scientist was my dad. My dad's not alive anymore, but he was an engineer, very keen for all of us. I got 2 older sisters, but for all of us to get a level of education that he didn't go to university. He was an engineer, but he didn't go to university. And so he was very keen on that, and so I think that's what really got me interested in science initially. What got me interested in chemistry, I guess it was something I always found interesting. I found relatively easy. I had an aptitude for it, I guess. When science split at about the age of 14 into chemistry, physics, biology, I found the chemistry and the physics really exciting, the biology less so. And so I kind of fell upon chemistry in a way that it was something that I enjoyed doing. I found really fascinating, and I could actually do it as well. So and inspirational teachers are really important. I mean, I can think back one particular teacher, Dr. Slee. If you're watching Dr. Slee, thank you. He was brilliant. He was really wonderful. But even before that, at my first school that I went to for O-levels, we had a teacher called Mr. Coburn, who was also very, very good. So I can remember these people, and they're very influential, have been influential to me, in a way that I can't remember all my French teachers. If you want to inspire people, you've got to get people out there who are inspirational and who aren't afraid of giving fairly complex ideas and concepts to kids. Kids actually are really receptive, and yeah, I think we should do more of that. Get out and tell young kids about the Big Bang and how fantastic atoms are and subatomic structure and stuff. That's what we should be doing.
Well, do you remember your time at university?
The first year was a complete blur. I would have said, kind of at 18, I left home and went to university and lived in halls of residence, which were just, it was fun. It was a good time. That was good. And in fact, I did a strange course. So the reason why I chose the university I went to the University of East Anglia. They ran a course which was 3 years long, which was the normal degree length in the UK at the time, BSc with honours. But at UEA, I could go to America for the second year, so I could get to go and live in America for 12 months. Growing up with a sci-fi mad dad, kind of knew all about NASA and the rocket program, space program and stuff. And so America to me was always something which was intriguing and fascinating. And so when I realised that I could combine my desire, passion for chemistry with the possibility to go and live in the States for 12 months and study in the States for 12 months, that's what really tipped the balance and why I said, okay, forget all the other universities, I want to go to this one.
But what are you currently researching?
Okay, so we're currently researching a few things, from metal organic frameworks, which are really useful as adsorbents for materials, so maybe capturing CO2 from the atmosphere as a means of storing hydrogen. So that's one area of research that we do. Another area is in nanoparticles, special nanoparticles which are highly fluorescent. So they absorb a broad spectrum of light but then they emit in a very, very narrow band. So these are quite useful as fluorescent materials. And then another area which we've had some success with in the past are in carbon nanostructures. So these are very small materials which have a very small length scale, maybe of the order of just a few atomic bonds or a few hundred atomic bonds, and predominantly just made out of carbon. That's what I wrote my thesis on 20 years ago. And as I got more interested in the magnetic aspects of that, I started to realise that these other properties that these materials had that may be of interest, their porosity, and the fact that you can put other materials, gases or hydrocarbons in there and use them as a sponge to store other things. I found that quite interesting. I moved to UNSW in 2005, and prior to that I'd been working in a central facility, a national lab, and doing lots of magnetic-based research on these small materials, extended networks. And when I moved to UNSW, I really couldn't get any students enthused by that. Students wouldn't find it very interesting. So I thought, well, I've got to get some research students. So I started thinking about nano. Nano was the buzzword. This was back in 2005. So I actually got a couple of very good. My first honours student was an excellent student. He's now actually a postdoc over at Sydney Uni. So he did honours with me, then stayed on as a PhD, and he really did a lot of the formative work in some of these carbon-based nanostructures that we looked at. And part of his thesis, he discovered a new way of making graphene, which is this kind of sheet-like layer just of carbon. So it's take a single sheet of paper, but if that was at the atomic scale, it's 1 atom thick. It would just be pure carbon as a single sheet. And we found a new way of making that. So we had a Nature paper, and we're all very excited. This was a few years ago now. So that's what got us onto that.
So you mentioned that you'd done your thesis in the 20 years ago. Has technology influenced the way your research has gone?
Yeah, okay, so I submitted my thesis in '95, so yeah, it's getting on for 20 years now. I guess the big advance in that time is information technology. '95, that was the early days of the internet in some ways, in terms of for everyone using it. And so, yeah, I guess computational power has been a big one. I dip in and out of computational power. I don't really do. If I do I have several projects either in the past or I've got at least 1 or 2 ongoing at the moment, which involve kind of purely computational studies, and I often do those in collaboration with other people. It's not my big desire to do that personally. I don't particularly have the skill base. I can understand what's happening. I'm far more of a hands-on materials type of person, doing real measurements rather than in silico virtual experiments. But I'm intrigued by that level of that capacity to do these high-level calculations now. Years ago, 20, 30 years ago, one could do a measurement and almost publish that data and say, well, we've measured the spectrum of this material and we think this is what's happening. And you couldn't do that now because people would expect you to do the full calculation behind it and show that these atoms move in a certain way. So you can actually get far more information out of the data. It's a far more valid way of doing science. So
you mentioned that your honours student got published in Nature. Is that the highest impact factor journal that you've been published in?
Mohammed, he was my first honours student and my first PhD student, and it was actually Nature Nanotechnology, so it was one of the sub-genre of Nature, but I think it has an impact factor of 29 or 30, something like that, so it's pretty high. A good chemistry journal would have an impact factor of about 5. The best, normally, specialist chemistry ones have an impact factor of about 12 or 13. So this is really quite something, and we were really chuffed. And in fact, he went on then to win the Cornforth Medal, which is awarded every year by the RACI for the best thesis in chemistry of the preceding year. So he did really well, and it was a nice wave to be surfing for a while. But then after the wave comes the lull, and we're still awaiting the ARC to fund us on that one.
What contributions to the scientific community does your research actually have?
My own research, I'd like to think the graphene stuff has been influential. It's had a lot of citations. It's had nearly 300 citations now, so that's quite a bit in 3-4 years. And I've had a few invitations to speak at conferences as part of that. So I guess it has been picked up, it has been acknowledged.
With all this exciting research, what interests do you have outside work?
Between my job as an educator, as a researcher, And as a manager, I guess, as being a modern academic, one has to manage one's research group and also school business. On top of that, with a family, I don't get much time for other things actually.
So no playing golf?
No golf. No golf. Pre-kids, I used to do, believe it or not, lots of sports. So when I was a postdoc, I was running marathons. I did 3 marathons. I did several half marathons. That's something I'd like to get back to, but that's a difficult thing to get back into. Just yesterday, in fact, this morning was my kids had their school cross country. So yesterday we decided to go around the park and have a practice. So my son's 10, and I was struggling to keep up with him actually. And so he did really well this morning. He qualified for district, so I'm quite proud of him of that. But yeah, the kids, between taking to the beach and taking to activities and stuff. I don't get much time for other things, but that's read. I read, I listen to music, but I guess those are things that I can look onto later in life and get back to.
Definitely.
Take up the paintbrush or something.
Well, thanks for taking time out and having an interview with us. It's been quite interesting, and well, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.